Welcome back. Next, we'll hear from Eric Fuller, CEO and President of US Xpress, about what remote work will look like moving forward. Welcome back, everybody. If you're just tuning in, welcome to Expo Chattanooga 2021. And I am so excited. I can't believe it's been a year already. I am talking to President and CEO, of course, of US Xpress, Mr. Eric Fuller. Hello, Eric. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
I am so happy to have you because I will never forget a year ago, we were in the midst of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And now we are here a year later. So I'm going to ask you, how are you and how is your team?
We're good. I think when we talked a year ago, I think we were still in the point where we didn't really know where things were going to go, right? I think if I remember right, it was probably mid-April or late April, and we were still in semi-shutdown, and there was still a lot of confusion. So at least at one point, now we have a little more clarity. I'm not sure we have a lot of clarity. There's still so much unknown, but a little bit more clarity of how things are working and how they're going to go. So from that perspective, I would say we're in a better place. We've managed well. Myself and my team has definitely managed as well as we could in this environment. We as an organization are still mostly work from home. We have people out in the field that need to be working in the field, but everyone else is still work from home. We went, I think it was the second week in March last year, we went to permanent work from home, and we've stayed that way ever since. And it seems to still be working well. I mean, I think we're all now a little anxious to get back into the office.
Right.
But so far, so good.
You, like other CEOs, not just locally here in Chattanooga, but everywhere, were one of the ones that said, you know what, no to working remotely. That is not an option. And so a year later, since your entire team has been doing it, what do you have to say about that now? Have things been the same? Has production been about the same with your team?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, really, I was very, very adamantly against work from home, and anytime it was brought up, I'm like, no, we're not doing that. And I didn't believe we could manage production, and then when we didn't have a choice and everybody went to work from home, it really, I don't want to say flawlessly, but pretty close to flawlessly. It worked really well.
Right.
And we saw in a lot of cases our production went up. Now, I think it was because we were probably over communicating. We went from a point where I think when you're in the office, proximity leads you to believe you're communicating when oftentimes you're not.
Right.
So in that situation, when we went to work from home, we forced communication points and multiple touch points throughout the week. And I think that actually improved the communication, and we've kept that up. So people today, our people are always telling us about how they feel more aligned, more communicated, more aware of what's going on than they ever had been previously. So that's been really a big positive for us. We've maintained production levels at a pretty high level. So really not a lot of negatives. I think the negative is always that fear about culture, where you don't have people in the office, they're not interacting, they're not talking around the coffee pot and those type of things. But for us, because we've really kept that communication up and kept those touch points up, I feel fairly confident that we've been able to maintain that. And in some sense, for us, we were at a company that was going through a transition, and we were going from a legacy, very traditional company that was really an industrial company to one that was really focused around technology. And we were trying to make that pivot, and in a strange way, COVID actually helped us to make that pivot, I think, a little bit quicker from a culture standpoint. And so when people were starting to work and they were interacting with people via video chat and those type of things, it kind of cultivated this kind of feeling of technology, and it kind of pushed us a little further and a little quicker towards really our end goal of being kind of this more technology type focused company. And I think that's been a big benefit.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because what I would love to do with all of the conversations that I have, I want to act as though that the viewer may not know anything about your industry and what you do. So for the people that don't know, I'm going to ask Eric to share exactly what US Xpress does here in Chattanooga and the world?
Sure. Yeah, so we're a large transportation logistics company. We have about 7,000 trucks. So you see the trucks out on the interstate, but we manage a lot of freight, both with our trucks and with other people's equipment as well. Big customers like Walmart, FedEx, Home Depot, people like that, Dollar General, Dollar Tree. So large, big companies, retail companies that are moving product across the country. That's our a big focus. And we're located all over the 48 states, Canada, Mexico. We have locations throughout the country.
You know, you spoke a little bit about connectivity with employees, more touch points. And, do you think that your employees have enjoyed collaborating a lot more during this process?
I think so. It's been different, right? We've had to all get comfortable about sitting in front of a video. We have adopted different types of technology where we can do kind of whiteboarding together via virtually. So there were things like that we all kind of had to get comfortable with. But as we go forward, we have made the decision that about 50 to 60% of our office employees are going to stay permanent work from home.
Wow.
So if you think about jobs where people are doing what I'd say kind of task-oriented work, where they would sit at a desk and they would do a task, whether it be answering the phones or computer work, and they didn't need a lot of interaction, those people are going to continue to work from home.
Right.
We saw that they like being at home, and they didn't really have a need to be in the office necessarily, and we were able to manage production at a high level by maintaining those people at home. So those people are staying at home. We are actually right now going through a big renovation in our offices. So we're knocking down walls and we're getting all new furniture. And really what we're trying to focus is the culture as we go back into the office is really about collaboration. Right. So we look at the type of roles that are going to be in the office and who's going to be in the office and what do they need from a collaboration standpoint. So if you'd gone to our office a year and a half ago, you'd have walked in and there were just cubes as far as the eye could see. It was really dense. And what we're going to have going forward is a completely different environment. It's not going to be nearly as dense, and there's going to be a lot of like breakout spaces. Some people may not even have permanent desks where they would kind of keep their laptop in a locker, and then they could kind of choose where they want to sit throughout the day.
Right.
And so it really is a different type of environment and work, mentality and culture. And I'm not sure had we gone through this that we would have been able to make that transition like we're going to.
Yeah, we all often think about employee engagement. So I am working from home as well. And sometimes I miss my colleagues, but when it's time to go back full throttle, what happens, when it comes to engagement? What else have you guys done outside of just your normal everyday touch points to make sure that employees are feeling great when it comes to mental health and also employee engagement? Because I know you guys have a great team.
That part's tough. I mean, that's probably been the hardest. The communication piece you can kind of force. The connectivity and more of kind of the alignment of just kind of from a personal standpoint is a little bit harder. But we have seen that a lot of our departments, and we really put that more on a department level type focus where department heads did things where some of them had, like on a Friday at 5:30, they had a cocktail hour, virtual cocktail hour. And they'd get on there and they just talk and they'd kind of hang out, and it wasn't a work type situation. They just kind of do things like that. There are other managers that I know some have gone out to eat, like sitting outdoors and taking their group. And so just trying to do, it's really hard because you can't really get everybody together.
Yeah.
So doing it in a virtual manner is probably best, but that's probably the one area that's probably lacking, just because it's hard to do with, not being able to get everybody kind of in a group.
Last year, I asked you the question, and I'll never forget. I said, what did you learn through this experience? So I do want to ask you, one thing that I really appreciate that the Chamber does here in the community is that they bring CEOs together and have great discussions. Do you lean on your peers when it comes to how to engage with your employees and also how to run your business?
Yeah. Absolutely. So the Chamber asked me in March of last year to chair the CEO roundtable.
Oh, wow. Perfect question.
Right. And so I agreed to do that. And then they have asked me going into this year if I would kind of re-up for 2021. So I'm doing that as well. And I'm actually enjoying that. That is something that I would say that I probably didn't take advantage of very well was really tapping into my peer group and really getting to know people that kind of have some similar experiences and kind of learning from them. And so once I started going through this process, and we meet monthly, all virtual, but it's been great. There's about 15 of the top, the CEOs of the top 15 companies in town, and we meet monthly and we have a different topic, and that's really been great. That's allowed me to kind of get to know a lot more of my peer group, and I've got a couple that I'll kind of reach out to and talk to on a one-on-one basis, and that's been really helpful.
We also, I really appreciate you sent me some information about what you guys are doing with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you want to talk a little bit about that because it's a year later.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So we put together a D&I group with I think it's probably about 20 members within the company, a very diverse group, not only from an ethnicity and race and religion and background, but also, in roles and responsibilities. And that's been really eye-opening for me. We actually had a meeting today, and we're really trying to figure out the path that we go forward within the organization. And we've got a couple of initiatives that we've rolled out over probably the last 6 months. We got a couple of resource groups that we've rolled out to try to, to get people that are maybe in some underrepresented groups to try to feel a little bit more comfortable. We're also looking at how, from a staffing standpoint, how can we attract different types of employees to the organization. Can we go to different types of colleges or training programs that maybe will help us tap into a different type of employee? And so, that group really kind of brainstorms a lot of different ideas and different approaches, and then we'll kind of decide what makes the most sense for the organization to kind of move forward. But it's been great, very well received.
Right.
I think everybody in the organization has been excited about it. I have town halls once a month, and that is always one of the topics and all the questions is, hey, what's going on with the D&I Council? What are we doing? And there's a lot of excitement around it.
Right. So you have these town halls. I know you said that was something that you started when everybody first we had the lockdown and quarantine, and will that be something that you will implement throughout, the time that you are with, of course, U.S. Xpress?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially since we're going to have so many people working from home. So with that, I would say a lot of that communication that we've started is going to continue forever and always. And so I would assume that as we go forward, I will have the monthly town halls, and we will keep this monthly communication up, and all the different other touch points that we've got throughout the day and throughout the weeks, we will continue because we're going to have so many people working from home.
Right. So I'm going to ask you the question again.
Okay.
What have you learned since you have been in this role at this time a year later?
Whew, yeah, it's hard to really even pick one. It's been it's been a crazy experience, right? I mean, it was something that I don't think any of us could have expected, and it was one of those where I think if anything, it taught me and my team that we can handle diversity, and that we can, if there's things that happen I don't know that there was anybody, and I'm sure there were some companies out there, but very few companies had hey, if a pandemic hits and we all have to be shut down for 8 weeks, what are we going to do?
Right.
And so it was one where you had to kind of figure it out on the fly. And I think we handled it as well as we could have. I feel very happy with the approach from the team and the results. And so I think the biggest thing we learned is that, we can handle anything thrown at us.
Right.
And I think that everybody on the team kind of feels that way now, is if something else that's kind of out of the blue that we would have never expected occurs, I don't think we will be as shell-shocked. We didn't freeze in our boots, but boy, there were a couple moments where we're like, I don't know how we're going to, it was that kind of shock when, you're dealing with something that you just never could have forecasted.
Wow. I could, just to hear that question answered, I remember when we first got the call and we said, I cannot believe it's been a year already. And so remote work, you guys are going to continue thus far. Do you have a plan over the next couple of months about maybe when?
Right.
What does the timeline look like if you guys are
Sure.
going to go back to work? And yeah.
So our construction will be done, that we're with our renovation in the offices, will be done in that early to mid July timeframe. But I've made a commitment to the organization that we're not going to go back if we have to go back with masks and social distancing. Like, the value of being in the office, in my opinion, is actually being there to work together, to collaborate,
Right.
where people can go into meeting rooms and there's 6, 7 people in a meeting room working on a whiteboard and things like that. And we're not going to be able to do that if we're still in a social distancing type
Right.
environment or wearing masks. And so we've just said we're just not going to go back until we can get into a situation where we're not wearing masks, we're not social distancing.
Right.
So is that July? I'd love to think that would be the case. Who
Right.
knows? So we're going to watch, and we're going to listen to the CDC and the experts and see what makes sense for us.
If it was up to us, if it were up to us last year, we would have been back in June. Remember
Right.
that?
Yeah.
Everybody said June is the date, and my birthday passed. I'm like, okay, it's June. Okay, July. So we don't have necessarily a timeline.
No.
Do you have any employees that are coming into the office at all, upper management or?
I started probably about 6 months ago going into the office once, twice a week, maybe even sometimes just 3 times a week, just to get out of the house, right?
Uh-huh.
If anything, some days I would have some of my team that would be there and we would work, and we do still have some on-site meetings now where we'll have some meetings and we'll get together. But it's when I go into the office, a lot of times I'm the only one there, so it's kind of eerie, and it's in one sense it's nice to get out of the house, but then the other sense it's kind of strange. You're in this big building and you're the only person there. We used to have almost 1,000 people in the office, so
Right.
it's a little different. But we do have some people that go in periodically. Now, right now we're in full construction, so no one's in. But so now that I can't go in, I wish I could go in.
Yes,
right?
yes. The little things we
Right.
appreciate. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience today about anything that's happened within the year or how you guys are moving forward?
I think the biggest thing is, I think it's really in the whole, well, I think there's a couple things. One, I think the business community has done an incredible job of managing through this. It's not just us. I think it's really all businesses have figured out a new way to do things. And everybody had to kind of evolve and come up with different ways that they manage, whether restaurants they took to delivery and
Right.
all these different things, and some of it was about survival and some of it was about companies excelling, but it really, for us, that was definitely something that we're really proud of, about how we kind of approached things and dealt with the environment and the situation we were dealing with. I think the other thing for us, and actually I would say again, I think this is a broader business issue, is that technology has really accelerated over the last 12 months.
Right.
If I was looking at the business environment prior to the pandemic, I was seeing a lot of people were working through automation and digitization, and there was a big movement towards technology, but it was a little sluggish on the adoption side. And then we got through to this COVID situation, and I felt like it just rapidly, the adoption of
Right.
a lot of this new technology
Right.
just happened overnight. And
Exactly.
so I think that if we look back in 3 or 4 years and we say, from a business standpoint, what did the pandemic cause? And I think it's going to cause this big shift from a technology focus and adoption. And all businesses have to really be thinking about how are they applying technology to their business much more than they ever have before.
Right, right. So my final question, I did this last time.
Okay.
I asked you a few of your favorite things so other leaders can get to know about you. And
Okay.
maybe these are some of the questions that your employees might want to know. They haven't asked during town hall. So are you ready?
Sure.
What was your favorite quarantine food? Uh-oh.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, my wife, she took up baking during the quarantine.
I did too.
I guess, you're stuck at the house.
Yeah.
And so I finally had to tell her to stop baking because I'd gained 20 pounds.
Yes.
But she took up baking and she made these homemade sourdough loaves. They were like that big.
Oh my gosh, it sounds
And they were incredible. I finally was like, you're never allowed to cook this again, because I literally just ate the entire loaf.
Right.
But that's probably my best memory from a food perspective.
Okay, so your favorite thing to do during quarantine? Uh-oh.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was funny. I felt like you're just stuck at the house. I think the biggest thing, at least during the early part, was just anytime you were able to get out.
Right.
Whether you were just to get on. I remember during the shutdown is just getting on the road and just driving.
Yeah.
You know, or just go. And we were very strict. I don't think we went to a grocery store for like 12, 14 weeks. And so I remember the first time going to the grocery store, I was like, this is amazing. Like,
Right.
you know, just getting out and doing stuff and seeing people and that type of thing was probably the most exciting after being shut down for so long.
Once the world is clear and you're able to go or do anything that you can choose to do, what will it be?
I mean, I think right now it's travel, any kind of travel. I think we've all been shut down and haven't really been able to go anywhere. I mean, we were, as a family, we were planning on, so we were going to take, I have a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 5-year-old, and we were actually taking them to Europe for spring break, and we were leaving in 2 weeks when the shutdown happened.
Oh, wow.
And so we didn't get to do that. And so it was something like that. I don't know that it necessarily needed to be that kind of a trip, but just to go somewhere and go out of town and, you know, go to take like a real trip, because it feels like, you know, for the last year we hadn't really been able to do that.
Yes, we're ready to rip the mask off and,
Right.
and eat and talk to people that are right next to us.
Exactly, right?
Well, thank you so much. A pleasure. And I hope, again, within another year, we're out of this on the other side and can have even better conversation.
That'd be great.
Yes,
Yep.
Thank you so much. Well, if you are listening and watching today, thank you. Of course, this is Expo Chattanooga 2021, and I'm Donna L.